address in the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Made by Lindy, is there a second?
A second.
Second by Vaughn, all those in favor say aye.
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 They're approved. Do we have anyone that signed in for public comment today? Wonderful. So we will move now to opening remarks. So I'm going to turn to my right, and I'll ask Lindy to kick us off if she has any opening remarks.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. The Public Safety and Justice Services Employee Equity DEI Committee continues to meet. We held our most recent meeting on April 25th, where we continue to move forward in concert with the countywide initiatives. We agreed that our members are going to serve as champions among their coworkers in the two big initiatives that you guys are rolling out, Lenora, the survey and the training that is coming in the next several months. And that was a suggestion of one of our managers, actually, that our employee committee members serve in that capacity, and they agreed enthusiastically. We're moving forward next with establishing mission, vision, and goals, and we're trying to bring in a speaker at one of our upcoming meetings. Again, we're a group of 6. We, represent all different divisions and different areas of expertise and positions. We are not subject matter experts. I think we feel like we're fledgling a little bit, so we're very excited about what the county is doing. Looking forward to the education and the survey, and hopefully getting some guidance from some of our colleagues who are a little further along, like in Health and Human Services, where you guys have, you're the most advanced in terms of what you've done. So that's where we are right now in Public Safety and Justice Services.
Development?
We're going to talk a lot, so I don't want to monopolize. I just want to mention that we're doing internal training with Kathy Jackson supporting, which is going quite well so far. So that's all. Vaughn, you got anything?
I do. I wanted to mention the last time we were together, I mentioned about these small business supports grants, and I'm happy to say that all 4 of those agencies, those organizations, have received their grant funding from us, and there's one of them that we're working with that's actually collaborating with the county that's about to put that money out on the street, so to speak, to begin assisting small and minority-owned businesses. Also, I wanted to give an update on the banking institutions I was working on with the City of East Cleveland, also Arbor Park. We're still continuing that work. As I mentioned before, there are 3 credit unions that are interested in opening a location, either a brick and mortar branch or either working to have a storefront or some other type of location they can have. So there's that one in Arbor Park. And then one thing that I've been doing personally is providing technical assistance to minority commercial real estate developers. They reach out to the county quite often, and they just want to be able to navigate some of the things that they're doing and get some information from me in terms of what's required, what they need to do, how they do property acquisition, things like that. So I've worked with at least 4 of them since the last time we've been together.
Great. Any questions for Vaughn? I'll do Department of Health and Human Services. So unfortunately, we had a departure. Dr. Leon Harris has left DHHS and taken a position at the Centers for Families and Children, or the centers. He's actually now their Chief Diversity Officer, so potential colleague out in the community. We are going through a process to replace Dr. Harris with an interim. Unfortunately, that transition has sort of slowed down some of our work in the short term. I hope that process will wrap itself up shortly, and we'll have a new leader to help guide us through our internal REI work. I know I have an email outstanding from Public Safety asking for some coordination, and I think we're delinquent in that response. We haven't lost it. We're just trying to replace the position. The last thing that I'll say, actually, one other point on open positions. Just as a general comment, we are doing quite a bit of work these days on trying to recruit staff We're actually beginning to look at doing some radio ads, using some other media. I want to acknowledge Sheba Marshall and her team. I think they've been outstanding partners with us doing in-person hiring fairs. It's been instrumental. We've been able to have a couple social work hiring fairs. It's really enabled us to get extra staff. Just need to say that we need more staff as well. This has got to be the biggest priority for us. And the last update that I'll share is, I think the last time we were together, I talked about the RFP that we had released for the Ohio National Guard program. Excited to say that RFP closed. We have a bidder that we're beginning negotiations with. And what's exciting and relevant to this meeting is we've written into it a focus on really supporting Ohio National Guardsmen to utilize their scholarship dollars and resources. But I think an aligned goal is also to try to begin to address disparity in their performance, or the performance of that scholarship program. Traditionally, African Americans are underperforming non-African Americans in their use of the scholarship, and one of the issues that we'll be talking through with the potential vendor is their ideas on how to respond to that, which will be exciting for us to build that into the proposal from the onset and hear a national perspective on what can be done to address those issues. It's exciting, it's early, more to come. So unless there are any questions, I'll ask Sheba if she wants to share anything. We'll do Lenora, and then I'm going to give Armin a couple minutes, and our county executive has joined us. So I'll give him a couple minutes after the departments do their opening remarks.
Well, thank you first, David, for that. Yes, we're continuing to work on our recruiting strategies to make sure that we're targeting all the markets that are around us, and to make sure we continue to work on our DEI initiatives, and that is going into communities that are somewhat marginalized, and making sure that they have opportunities, that they know about the work that Cuyahoga County has available, and the great benefits that we have to offer. In working with the county. We're continuing to meet monthly with our DEI committee, and that's going real well. And like my colleague here, we're doing the same thing with having our committee to become sort of champions with DEI training, DEI initiatives inside of HR, as well as throughout Cuyahoga County. So I'll leave mine brief, and that'll be it.
I'll ask Lenora to do opening remarks, and then we'll ask Armin if there's anything he'd like to share in terms of updates, announcements.
Thank you. I'll reserve my remarks to the 2 items on the agenda and turn it over to the executive.
Okay. I do not have prepared remarks, but I will just say thank you for the work you're doing. It's very important. I appreciate the fact that the training is revving up and ready to go for our staff. We have to keep our pedal to the metal on inclusion, but we also have to hire. But we have to fill those. I get asked often, including this week, we were at the Center for Community Solutions meeting on ARPA, and one of the questions was, are you using funds to enhance diversity and inclusion? How is it being used for equity? And it's, so it's almost, everything we do in the county touches on equity, not just now with ARPA, but for years what the county has done. Mm-hmm. All of our health and human services mm-hmm. is heavily equity focused. The people we serve are typically underserved. People who need Medicaid, SNAP, and other things tend to be more minority oriented. So, we have a heavy involvement there. Our economic development programs, we've been very focused on making sure that we make our loans and grants to businesses that are supporting, that are either minority owned, female owned, or supporting equity in their employment. Talk about how, the ECDI program and the Urban League program, et cetera, have all, you know, had 40 or 50 or 60% of the loans going to companies that are minority owned. That was before ARPA. If you look at our programs, I mean, you know, throughout the county, I mean, one of the very first things I did 8 years ago was double the number of kids in high-quality pre-K.
Yep.
That's heavily minority focused, because the kids who need the help or financial help are tend to be more in minorities. So, you know, what we have done historically is equity oriented, and the ARPA funds, if you look at the way we're proposing to use the funds, and so far council's support, very equity oriented. So programs like the homelessness program that we were just discussing, programs like the workforce program that went through committee earlier this week, programs like the
broadband
broadband is
will be huge.
very equity oriented. I mean, the areas that we're focusing on are underserved areas. So, I mean, you go through the list, it's up and down the list. It's multi-millions of dollars of our program, great percentage equity focused. So, you know, we're very, and it's not accidental. I mean, that's what we focus on. So, you know, I think that the county doesn't get anywhere near the credit it should for what we do, and that's partly my fault and our fault, but everything we do, not everything, most things we do, equity. I mean, even when we support giving money to enhance the baseball stadium and the basketball stadium, we build in minority hiring requirements. So it's everything we do has an eye towards equity, and it's been that way for years. It's not something that just started. But the COVID clearly has highlighted what we need to do. Put money into testing and vaccines in underserved areas. We've partnered with Metro to do that, as we saw where it wasn't just happening. So I think we should all be very proud of what the county's doing.
Well, and I think that is actually, it's a perfect lead-in, because our next agenda item is to talk about ARPA. And it's to talk about how we're funding projects and how we're addressing equity in projects, but also in generally in funding. And so this is going to be the first of several parts. And obviously, we have reason to have restricted attendance, and I understand this isn't necessarily a meeting that we've had a lot of public attendance, but I also feel important for us to have a record of all that we're doing, and for that record to be maintained, and for there to be some equity consideration in the record. So if it's okay, I'm going to move on to our first agenda item, which is again, Armin, you did the segue to the ARPA funds and equity, and this is part one. I think we're going to have a couple of these presentations. We do want to save time to have talk about our other major announcements. Lenora has an equity training announcement that and an update, as well as the GEAR survey update. So I'll be watching just to ensure that we can still move through all of our agenda. But I want to take the time right now to ask Paul and Vaughn if you could kick us off. I understand you have your team members here.
We do.
And this is exciting. So
Thank you, David. First, I want to say the way the county has approached deciding how to use ARPA funds has been, in my opinion, a model of how the public sector should do this. We had broad public engagement. We had multiple outreach opportunities. We had our website up. We had departments bringing forward ideas. We had a very robust internal debate. I think many of us in the room were part of those robust internal debates. We had thoughtful and careful tracking, and we had, and I'll say to this executive, we had a model of working with the legislative body to be able to produce an agreed-upon set of programs ready for public announcement together. And I really think that speaks to the way, Armin, you've run this process. So thank you. And we're going to be talking now about ARPA, and we should. We're talking today about equity. We're talking tomorrow about the economic development aspects with our Economic Development Commission. This is something we can be proud of. On the other hand, the work is just starting. We've decided how to use the money, now we have to do it. What I want to do is give a shout out to the staff, the very hardworking staff in the Department of Development, who are going to be talking a little bit today about some of the specific projects we're supporting. You know, I've worked for a long time with Bob, with Jan, with Sarah, of course, you know, Vaughn recently. We have some terrific staff, and I want to thank the administration for the trust they put in the Department of Development by saying, you go out and make sure this money's spent correctly. So today we're going to focus on only some of the ARPA allocations, and I'm going to flip now to Vaughn to kind of MC this part.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. This is really exciting for us. We've spent a lot of time working on these projects and putting this together under Lenora's direction and how she wanted to have this. So I'm here with some folks from our development team, Bob Flato, Jan Bain, Sarah Parks Jackson, and we're going to go through some of the projects that we have been working on and give you some updates. And Lenora, we're going to follow your 4-point questions to kind of address these as we go through, okay? And I want to kick us off with talking about the small business grants and give an update on that. Bob has a few that he's going to go over. Jan is going to be talking about brownfields a little bit, and then Sarah, I believe, is going to be speaking about lead. So with that, I wanted to kick us off with what's going on with the ARPA funds that have been authorized by county council. I'm going to go over my notes here, Lenore, so I kind of follow this format that you gave us. With the authorization of $2 million of American Rescue Plan funds that will be made available through a nonprofit grants administrator selected on a competitive basis by a small business grants advisory committee comprised of 13 small business experts throughout all of Cuyahoga County. And under the direction of the grants committee, the grants administrator will provide these grants directly to small businesses with a focus and an eye towards MBEs and WBEs as well. This grant is going to be focusing on helping business scale and grow, and not so much as a survival type grant to businesses that are just looking to stay afloat. The advisory committee has been established. We meet on a regular basis, and we're wrapping up actually the entire program. So we are already worked through the grant criteria, the scoring, the grant amounts, and we also have 5 organizations that have submitted proposals to serve as the grants and fiscal administrator. The second part of the question, number 2, is I'd asked about the project history. This grant is a continuation of the county's ongoing commitment to small and minority and women-owned businesses. The project impact, obviously, in advancing equity is direct financial support to those small, minority, and women-owned businesses throughout Cuyahoga County. And let me just mention one thing about the grants committee. It is comprised of some great experts from a variety of organizations that represent different backgrounds, ethnicities, all those different things to come together to do this. And it's interesting to be on those calls because there's a lot of great conversation that goes on from the different perspectives from those organizations. And then lastly, number 4 is the project timeline. And the plan is to make sure that all of these funds are distributed to these businesses by the end of this year, December 31st, 2022. So that goes over those 4 points. Lenore, any questions for me on the small business grants?
I know I have questions, but for the purposes of the group, it would be okay for us to do you want to do all the presentations and then ask questions?
That's fine.
Because I see your team here, I know they were here on time, and first, I just want to acknowledge, I think I'm grateful for you bringing your team members to come and present it, bringing in more members to be part of the Equity Commission. And I do have some questions if we can get to it, but I'm also mindful of their time and would love to have you move through if possible, just so they can each share a little bit more on each of their programs.
Sure. Thank you, David. So with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Parks Jackson. I'm sorry, Jan Bain. Jan's going to talk to us about brownfields. I'm sorry. Jan?
Thank you, everyone. Basically, we are excited about the ARPA money. I have been working here since 2006 with the brownfields, and right now that's very hot and heavy as far as what we've been trying to help with EPA money. This money from the ARPA would be very helpful, basically for this project to help with both the brownfield assessments and brownfield remediation projects that are coming into us. Again, they are coming in for, they're going to do 75% request to the state. We would like to use our ARPA money for 25% match for these projects. Now, we're going to handle them like we have with our other programs, is they come in, we have a team that evaluates them, scores them, and the ones that basically meet the criteria that we're looking for in that particular vein, it's going to be addressing equity, the detrimental health and quality of life effects of our substances that have been used in the contamination of the buildings, that a lot of them are brownfields because they've been deserted. What they left behind is a legacy of 100-some years where people walked to work. The homes were in the 50s and 60s. The people moved out, leaving minorities behind, being exposed to contamination coming from the buildings, coming from the smokestacks, that kind of thing. So we have a lot of those issues still remaining, unfortunately, in our county. We've been working on them. But again, that health and quality of life effects of this past century of the substance contaminants from these manufacturing industrial structures and businesses have really had a harmful effect on our communities and our people. So basically, our ask is to get some of this funding from the ARPA to help us with those projects that are going to be qualified through the state. Any questions?
Vaughn, I think, as I said, is your staff able to stay through the entirety of this, or
Yes.
Paul, through
Yeah.
the entirety of this presentation so that we can maybe get
Yes,
all
they
of our
can.
questions done and then?
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes, they can.
We'll hold,
Thank
we'll
you.
hold
them
questions
to the
until
end?
all the presentations are done.
Thank you, Jan. Sarah?
Good morning.
Morning.
I can't stay, but Paul can cover if there's any questions for lead. So Jan talked about brownfields. When we talk about brownfields, we have to talk about lead. When we talk about lead, we have to talk about the equity zones that were created and the redlining that happened because that's where these houses are. They are generally built before 1978, before there was a ban on lead-based paint, but there's also lead in pipes. Think Flint, Michigan, in faucets, in plumbing fixtures, in the dirt outside the house. So what we have done for years is the Department of Development has partnered with the Board of Health and the grant that they received from HUD to eliminate the lead contaminants in residential parts of Cuyahoga County, particularly the inner ring suburb. The $1.8 million that we received from ARPA that will go to the Board of Health will allow us to do even more homes and to remediate those homes, which means they're gonna go in, they're gonna test it, they're gonna remove the contaminated paint. In some cases, they are outside removing the contaminated dirt because Black and brown children occupy the majority of the low to moderate income housing that's affected by the lead-based paint. So one of the features of this is preference is given to homes with children under 6 because those are the children affected most. Touchy little people, and then fingers go to mouths, and the lead-based dust that comes from the windows and the door jambs is then ingested, making them, in some cases, very ill, or even playing outside in the dirt. There's that lead-based paint particles that provide a problem for the little ones The last thing that will be done with that 1.8 million is prevention efforts by the Board of Health to do a comprehensive outreach campaign so that people are aware of the elevated blood levels and what causes them. A lot of times the children who are asthmatic, this is where it came from. The medical care they can get and where they can get it from. This activity is moving forward. I think we have a first read at council on Tuesday, and then we'll go to committee and hopefully get approved at that point. I'm gonna hang around for a little bit, but if I have to leave, then Paul can answer any questions that might come up.
Thanks, Sarah. Bob's going to come up and talk to us about 4 other ARPA programs, right?
I have 6 other ones.
6 other ones,
I've had
I'm
the
sorry.
privilege of working on several of these
6?
contracts, and
6 of them.
I'll continue with the idea of remediating lead first, since Sarah was on the topic. I'm going to talk about the Cleveland Water Alliance contract. Cuyahoga County is providing $1,450,000 to grow Cuyahoga County's water economy by focusing on 3 areas. And they are a water-intensive industrial attraction initiative, a water solutions company attraction initiative, and a test beds and innovation initiative. I guess I'll say that this, under project history and your outline, Lenora, I would say this agreement is intended to complement the Cuyahoga County Lakefront Public Access Plan. I would kind of put it in that category. The test beds and innovation, so Cleveland Water Alliance has built a pipe farm in Parma as part of its test bed assets. The purpose is to activate innovation around identification of lead service lines without breaking ground. By doing so and bringing a solution to the market, they will identify all lead service lines within Cuyahoga County, do so at an accelerated rate and lower costs, increasing the speed of replacement. I also wanted to note here, I've asked several of these vendors when they weren't so obvious, like, what are you know, how is your project impacting, advancing, and addressing equity? Because I wanted to hear from them directly, so I hope I'm doing them justice. One of the things Cleveland Water Alliance mentioned in their response, which was very long, is that they're a part of the Cleveland Water Equity Task Force, which is a cross-sector endeavor with the goal of intentionally making water management outcomes and processes equitable, and with a goal to increase the understanding of challenges, opportunities, and promising interventions to promote water equity in Greater Cleveland. And that this project, it'll be 2 years from execution of the contract would be the time frame. And so I guess we're skipping questions. I'll move on to the Cuyahoga County Land Reutilization Corporation, which we're going to say CCLRC going forward, because that would be hard. So this agreement is to provide matching funds to leverage the state of Ohio's for demolition and taking down abandoned properties in Cuyahoga County. The funds combined with the CCLRC will provide them up to $8 million in funding to support demolition and brownfield assessment and remediation activities. The funds will support the demolition of 52 residential and commercial properties with an additional 440,000 square feet of blighted properties in Cuyahoga County. For the history, I said this grant program is intended to capitalize on the state of Ohio's new demolition and site revitalization program and the brownfield remediation program, because they're matching funds to that. Their impact on advancing and addressing equity, the funding will advance addressing equity in several ways. CCCLRC expects to use funds to undertake environmental remediation and demolition of vacant and distressed properties. The majority of such properties are located in low-income minority neighborhoods. When buildings deteriorate and start to collapse, contaminants such as asbestos and lead paint can be released into the environment and migrate to neighboring homes which may be occupied. Our demolition program addresses these risks by abating the asbestos and lead as part of the pre-demolition and demolition processes, thus improving neighborhood health and supporting environmental justice and equity. And another point they made is by removing blighted structures, our program boosts the property values of neighboring properties and assists low-income and minority homeowners in recovering from lost home equity and restoring opportunities to build wealth. And then a third point they made is that CCCLRC has long supported equity in hiring many minority contractors to work on demolition projects. Their last analysis as of March 21st, 2022, stated that 56% of their demolition and asbestos abatement contractors were minority-owned and or female-owned businesses. And this contract will run 3 years from execution of the agreement. And then moving on to another project, which is also intended to assist vacant and abandoned properties. Food Strong, Cuyahoga County is providing $400,000 to support Food Strong and Reutilization Green in their efforts to revitalize vacant lots in Cleveland and entering suburbs. The goal is to provide tools, supplies, equipment, soil, and other materials to help and create and sustain vacant lot spaces in nascent urban agriculture and community green space enhancement projects. So some of the history is a little long. Food Strong is a 501c3 that was organized. They're dedicated using fresh foods as a tool to empower, educate, and cultivate health across Northeast Ohio. In 2016, Food Strong began working closely with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to build a school garden toolkit and curriculum based on Ohio's learning standards. Food Strong has since guided students at 2 Cleveland Metropolitan School Districts through the design, planning, maintenance, and harvest of on-site fresh food and flower gardens. In this initiative, they're partnering with Reutilization Green. Reutilization Green's partnership will lead the construction of and restoration of, project designs, gardens, gathering spaces. They're going to maintain the actual sites. Reutilization will maintain and clean up sites, water plants, and plant trees as needed, track site needs, make repairs, cut grass, assist with larger community events. Reutilization is an urban farm and environmental stewardship organization established in 2010 in the city of Cleveland's Lower Kinsman neighborhood. So I listed here an example that I thought was impressive of Reutilization Green's efforts. One is it's an urban farm in an area that was known for decades as the Forgotten Triangle due to illegal dumping and urban disinvestment. The Reutilization team secured 1.3 acres from the city of Cleveland to launch the project in 2010. And today the farm is transformed into an 18-acre campus with 2 greenhouses, 6 hoop houses, EPA licensed compost facility, a tilapia fish farm, and a community kitchen where cooking and nutrition classes take place. How the project advances and addresses equity. It would establish plans to redevelop, restore, and repurpose vacant lots throughout the county, with an underlying goal of injecting community spirit, engagement, and hope in the cities and communities. They have listed the following cities as high priority: Cleveland, Maple Heights, South Euclid, and East Cleveland. They wanted to point out that vacant and underutilized lots often denote a site where a house once stood, or serve as a reminder that a street is facing a decline in physical assets and social capital. It's anticipated that initiative will undertake 13 to 15 projects in Cleveland and 3 in suburban communities. And the timeline for this is 1 year from the contract execution.
I'm going to do a quick time check. I'd like
Yeah,
Bob not to have to rush through your items. I do want to have a save time for Lenora's updates on the training as well, or NHR's updates on the training as well as the gear survey. So I'd like to ask if folks have a couple extra minutes, if we extend a little bit long. If there's hard stops, we'll understand. Lenora, and I don't know how much time we'll need for those other 2 updates, but I also.
For the updates, maybe about a total about.
Okay, all right. I do want to save time for questions, though, because I think it's very valuable information being shared. Go on,
Okay.
Bob.
Yes, and sorry, some of these are long and detailed. The next one is actually especially long. It's the Fund for Our Economic Future.
So I'm going
do you-
to jump in.
Okay.
Since I know quite a bit about this and relieve Bob of the
Give me a breather.
So here, thanks to the executive's leadership, we've got $9 million being devoted to 3 very important workforce projects. One is a continuation of support to our manufacturing sector partnership. The equity impact of this has been tremendous already through their Access to Manufacturing program. Both returning citizens and others of disadvantaged backgrounds have been recruited into manufacturing. A very large number of minority residents have been included in that, and so the continued work has very strong goals, again, for Black Latinx participation in manufacturing hiring. Second piece of this is internships for college-level students. This is with Greater Cleveland Partnership and local employers focusing on STEM. Again, there's a very strong equity goal for participation by Black and Latinx students in these internships. And the third piece is an extension into suburban school districts of some very good work that's being done in Cleveland Municipal School District to really embed career awareness, career preparation into the grades 6 through 12 curriculum, so that students will be prepared for their careers as they go straight to work, which many choose to do after graduation. And once again, there's a strong goal here of over 50% of the participants being who are actually trained and placed in jobs to this work being Black or Latinx. So around the horn, this $9 million will have a strong equity impact. Back to you, Bob. For the other ones.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. You did that a lot faster than I could. And the project timeline is 3 years from execution of the contract. So we're going to move on to the arts initiative. Bless you. The arts and the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture and Assembly for the Arts are 2 organizations the county is interested in working with. Cuyahoga County is providing $1.65 million to support arts and culture. Cuyahoga Arts and Culture will be distributing these funds as direct grants to 501c3 nonprofit organizations. They anticipate funding 95 Cuyahoga County-based arts nonprofits. And this is a continuation of the efforts from 2020 through $3 million in CARES Act funding. We asked the question of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, how is their program advancing and addressing equity? I want to say they have a robust organizational culture of advancing equity. A portion of their website's devoted to demonstrating these efforts. Some quick examples from their website are in their 2020 grant cycle, they began collecting demographics of their applicants. They point out that 70% of the supported artists identify as people of color. Lastly, when the county asked them this question, they decided to add an additional criteria to their applications that they'll be using for this program. And they said that all ARPA sub-grantees will be asked how they are advancing equity in their organization and their community. And they promised to share these themes with the county as part of their regular reporting. This contract is a 1-year contract from execution of the contract. And then Assembly for the Arts I would call them a partner organization with Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. Cuyahoga County is providing $1.65 million to support AFTA, and they will be distributing these funds as direct grants to local artists. They anticipate funding 500 creatives and 40 businesses in Cuyahoga County based arts nonprofits. I would, it's the same project history as a continuation of the $3 million CARES Act funding. And Assembly for the, as far as how it advances equity, Assembly for the Arts is committed to advancing inclusion and racial equity as a core value of our organization's work. Assembly is redressing systematic racism through building anti-racist organization that serves artists, business owners, and nonprofit leaders, helping them move to action to create a more equitable arts community. This includes advocating for more equitable funding to BIPOC artists and organizations and removing perceived and real barriers that currently limit all residents from participation. These core values will underpin the development of our program to redistribute the ARPA funds awarded by Cuyahoga County. That was their response. And this is also a one-year contract from execution. And I think that is the last of my list.
Thank you, Bob. That's the last one for us.
All right. So we'll pause here. We've got a little bit of time still that we can ask questions. First, I'll ask Armin if he's got any questions he'd like to share. But before we jump to that, first I need to acknowledge just how challenging it can be to have all of that information condensed into a meeting like this. We're talking millions of dollars, hundreds of hours probably of staff time in preparation, development. And Paul, I want to acknowledge your team. I think they've done a great job here, concisely presenting how you're leveraging these ARPA resources to respond to COVID, but also respond to the call that racism is a public health crisis. Wonderful job with both of them. Specifically, just want to acknowledge Sarah Parks Jackson and how critical she's been in DHHS's response to COVID and our homeless efforts. She's been an invaluable partner all the way through. I know she's got to leave, but I can't miss an opportunity to acknowledge Sarah for her great partnership. Before we open it up for questions, Armin, any initial questions, anything you'd like to ask, or if not, I'll open it up to the rest of the group.
I would just first of all say, Sarah is very modest. She doesn't mention the fact that she's overseeing $100 million of rental assistance funds, which is, life-changing for people. And it's under her direction. So, in fact, half of that money came because of her. So,
yeah,
that's great. I also, Bob, you got to get more excited about this stuff. This is big time stuff. So, just one thing I would add is water project that you were talking about. The fact is, in terms of attracting business to Cuyahoga County, I think that there are two key initiatives that we're working on. One is the Microgrid, which gives us the chance to bring businesses to Cuyahoga County that are that need the most reliable electricity in the world, and that we're also putting some ARPA money into. The water project is the second one, where we have water, and there are many manufacturing companies scattered around the country and in the world that need humongous quantities of fresh water to do their manufacturing. And if you follow news reports, water is drying up in the West and Southwest, California, Arizona, New Mexico, you go through the list, there's no water. And, you get these pictures of lakes and rivers disappearing. And that impacts manufacturing businesses. And those manufacturing businesses we need to bring to Cleveland, to Cuyahoga County. And that's part of this program. And aside, I was talking to the guy who with Jobs Ohio that directed Intel to Licking County outside of Columbus. And we were talking about, it should have been here, was my pitch. And I talked about the microgrid and the water, both of which, for a chip-making company, they need to avoid having the electric grid go down, or it's very costly and damaging, and they need huge quantities of fresh water. That's one of the manufacturing industries that need water is chip-making. Actually, he was interested, and we may be in line for the next one, we'll see. But I think it's very exciting, both those things, as well as the other things you talked about. You know, I could talk about all of them, you know,
I watched the videos you did. You did this a lot better than I did.
Well, actually, you know, in the interest of watching the agenda, there are videos available. I'll actually ask to have those linked in our agenda, in our minutes, as those videos do go into greater detail. I do want to save time for Lenora's the other updates on the agenda. Let me pause here. Are there other questions? I mean, I know I have questions, but I think in the interest of time, I might take those offline, because I would like to know just more about how minority communities are being considered for like the brownfield projects. But I think those will get deeper into details. And so I'll do one more call for questions, because I do want to give some time for the other updates. Anyone else? Any other questions? Well, I understand this is the first part of several where we're going to be talking about ARPA and how we've allocated DHHS's O's presentation with our homeless service grants. A lot more to come. You know, Paul, Vaughn, great job in having your team prepared, really giving us I think the amount of information we need for the record, but also for consideration for our own investments. So this is great work. I'm going to move us on in the agenda. Lenora, can you do you want to begin with the presentation on the training?
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you for development, sharing that valuable information. It's another opportunity to let the public know, and internally and external, how we're using the funds and continuing our effort to advance equity. So the training, as you're aware, we're in the midst of doing training for the 4,500 employees that are under the authority of the county executive. We completed the first phase, which was the stakeholders analysis, which included input from focus groups of executive leadership, and we have 5 focus groups of about 10 each that provided input. That resulted in the report that was presented to the county executive on April 15th. And the data and responses from that report was used to determine the topics for our town hall series, which is the format that's going to be provided for all of county staff, as 3 town halls, and the 3 topics were selected based on input from the focus group. The town halls, I'll go backwards, are going to start in August, and they should be completed by early November. There will be about each town hall topic, there's 3 topics. Each topic will be presented 7 times. That's at varied times, so we could try to make sure that it's available and accessible by all the county staff. As far as the town hall series, there's 2 specific populations of county employees. There's those that have county-issued laptops and computers, and then there's a significant amount of staff that do not have county-issued laptops and computers. So the main hurdle is to make sure that both of those populations have a similar interactive experience. From Tri-C's perspective, they're providing the training virtually. So those county employees that have county-issued laptops and computers will be able to join virtually those trainings. However, there's also concurrently the about 1,400 or so employees without county-issued laptops that we're going to have to provide a physical location for them to come and interact in the training as if, or in a similar format as if they're virtual. That is requiring a lot of coordination with our IT department. different facility scoutings within county buildings. We're gonna be using a lot of HHS buildings, Jane Etna Hunter, because of the audio visual, the larger gathering spaces, Public Works gathering with them also, coordinating with them as far as their Harbor Road garage facility, so that we can make sure we have capacity and the flexibility in all the different time schedules, so that both of those populations of county employees can participate in that town hall trainings. Again, those start August. Currently, we just sent out, probably last week, for the masses of supervisors and management and leadership, access for the management and leadership training. That's gonna be cohort style, meaning that there's gonna be 2 classes within each group, and the groups stay together. So the goal is to build that camaraderie, and it's gonna be a continuation. So they'll have their first session. In between, there's gonna be homework assignments, the Harvard bias test, and then they'll come back for the second session. Those classes are currently out for a registration now for supervisors and above. Again, we're using a database, great coordination from HR. We work with IT. We did feedback with supervisors to try to get feedback on schedules, timing, any specific needs with, for instance, with CCOMs, for 911, the sheriffs, because they have obviously 24/7, and as we mentioned earlier, everyone's reduced staffing, but you still have to do those operations. HHS, because you have a lot of training concurrently that's coming up that, again, each county agency and department is dealing with the shortage of employees and turnover, while at the same time still committing to make the investment with their staffing during this time of shortage, to still make an investment to participate in this training. So that is occurring, the registration. The first class will, group 1 will be meeting their first class for the management training will be next Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
All the management trainings, both classes for each group, should be completed by the end of July. And that's when the town hall series will follow. We work with communications. I appreciate they've been very helpful helping us develop a communication plan. We have an intranet page, which I'll provide information on how through using our database to reach out. That page will grow in information as the project, the training progresses. Currently now it has an overview of the program with some additional details on all the phases of training that occur. We anticipate adding information there so that it'll be a resource not only to employees but also to supervisors. I appreciate the champions for making sure that the training occurs and making it specific goals, and we're hoping that page could be a resource where we can put who signed up, who hasn't signed up. Also, a resource for us to learn. As I stated, we worked and build this database, but as we hear, the population of employees changes. Some employees that maybe when we started the database weren't supervisors may have been promoted. As you mentioned, there's interim promotions because of attrition, so that we need feedback to make sure that if you're a supervisor, you're getting access to that training, that new employees are on the contact list so that they can register. So, very important.
Are there any questions for Lenora? I know we're a minute over. That's because I was 5 minutes late, so I apologize again. If I could ask for the group to just hold, because I'd like for Lenora to have at least a little time to be able to also do some updates on the GARE survey.
Yeah, so thank you again. Timing again, we're looking at rolling out the GARE. GARE is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. It's a combination of nationally political subdivisions that are committed to advancing race and equity. As part of our annual membership, one of the benefits is that they will do a GARE, employee race and equity survey. The purpose of that survey is to assess our employees' understanding and knowledge and skills on race and advancing the area of race and equity, and also their awareness of the programs and initiatives that their employer is participating. So it measures individually what they are aware and also their awareness of what their employer is doing to advance race and equity. The benefit of implementing this survey now is that we can establish a baseline. It's recommended that every couple of years, the survey is conducted again, and then that can gauge how you're advancing, improving in that area. And also you can use that data to develop strategies. So our survey will, the first date that the survey will be available is June 21st. It's conducted by GARE. It's anonymous. They'll provide the link. They're going to be the only ones that have access to the data. And then they will provide a report. So the survey will be available for employees to respond between July 21st and July 15th. Yeah, June 21st, I'm sorry, June 21st, thank you. June 21st through July 15th. Then GARE will take a couple of months. They should anticipate submitting a draft survey, a summary of results from the survey in mid to late September. That'll give us an opportunity to review this draft report, and then they'll present the final report by October. What's definitely needed is definitely champions. They request, and this is kind of, they're very successful at this, if you follow and have champions to push it. For them to do the data, they rely upon at least 40% participation. So definitely need champions to push the importance that we need the input, that it is anonymous. We want your input so that we can have a confidence in the baseline information. Also, for the same population that do not have access to county computers, we're going to work with those department leaders to make sure that, for instance, the sheriff's department, we're planning to visit for roll call and work with their captains and leadership to make sure that they give them that time of the day to complete the survey. And that's one of the things that all of us as leaders and champions can do is emphasize the importance of providing the input. This sets is similar to the stakeholders analysis. They gave us the ability to tailor the training specifically for our area. This input by county employees can help develop the strategies that moving forward, how we develop our initiatives.
Great. Plus, here, are there any questions for Lenore?
I have a couple questions. I've often found with surveys, forms, applications, it can really help your participation if you let participants know approximately how long it takes to complete that exercise, because then they know, to set aside a half an hour. I need a half an hour to do this. Is that known? Is GARE able to tell us the
They're estimating
average?
10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's 50 questions. Of the 50 questions, I would say approximately 45 of the questions are 1 through 5 type of
Multiple
selections.
choice, yeah.
Agree, strongly disagree,
Mhm.
yes or no, I don't know. There's a couple of questions that are specific to them, their characteristics that they have to answer personally about themselves. Again, for those demographics, and see if there's a difference and things of that sort when they do the data. And then there's 2 free flow or free text questions.
Okay.
And part of the communication plan, I worked with communications about a week ago, and as I stated, because in order to get that 40% participation, they did have recommendations on how to roll out the messaging. So we are in that outreach phase to get the information out, and as you stated, for people to know when you start this, on average, what's the timeline?
Right.
Impress upon them the importance, that feedback. So yes.
Okay. Actually, that was my only question. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Lenore? So I know that we're a couple minutes over time, and so I appreciate everyone's patience. I'm going to open it up now for any remaining questions, any closing remarks?
I got one, David.
Right.
If you listen carefully to what Bob said about our Cuyahoga arts and culture, he said that when we asked them about equity, they changed something they did. I think that speaks to the value of having this commission.
Yes.
Well said.
Yes. I listen. I exactly echo your comments because again, we want to do our improvement, but a lot of times when you're working on advancing equity and you're visible in doing it for the community, you can also start being a model for others.
Anyone else? Well, and to that point, I think there's also value in the role Lenora's playing, the role Adam's playing, maintaining the journal, maintaining the record, being able to show that we are institutionalizing our responses, and it is in fact trickling through the organization in many unexpected ways. So unless there are any other questions, yeah.
I'd like to add just one. What I didn't say earlier is that our tuition assistance program is going for third reading next Tuesday. We're excited about that because I think part of advancing equity is having doors opened to get the education that you need to make a life better for yourself. So I'm very excited about our tuition assistance program going forward.
It's great. I would just tell you that I presented to a group of new social workers that are beginning training last week, and 2 people asked questions about the tuition assistance program. So I think it's really valuable, and it's important for us to be able to continue to build our workforce. So thank you for championing that. All right, in the interest of time, a motion to adjourn? Second? Meeting's adjourned. Thanks.